Hi, I'm Caroline Mitchell, canine behaviourist at Good Doggy. So once your dog has shown an anxious or a reactive type of behaviour, it's really easy to try to avoid those situations in the future. If your dog has separation anxiety, you might choose to get a puppy sitter, or if your dog gets anxious about passers-by, you might prevent your dog from seeing or hearing outside. Maybe you're anxious about visitors coming to the house, so you move your dog into the garden or take them for a walk when people come around to visit. Or perhaps your dog's getting stressed out on their walk. Maybe other things trigger them, like kids playing or other dogs being there or off-lead dogs or whatever. So it's really easy to try and avoid those situations. And you'll find that probably if that's something that you've been doing, then you might well have been judged by people, your friends or your family or onlookers or something like that. Often people feel like they need to make some kind of comment or criticize that you're taking somehow the easy way out, or you're trying to cop out and not really solve the problem. But when you don't have a plan, this is really hard to kind of change. You don't want to make things worse, and maybe you've tried some stuff and it hasn't worked how you would have expected it to work. No one likes to see their dog getting distressed either, especially when there's nothing you can do about it. Reactive behaviour and separation anxiety are probably the worst kinds of behaviour for this, because there's nothing you can do to soothe them when they're in that very deep level of anxiety, because they have gone over threshold. The emotion has overwhelmed them and they are not really in control now of what they're doing. So there's so little we can do to help them. So that helpless feeling, the kind of potential of feeling judged and everything else. So avoidance can feel like a really easy option, but there is some value in this, and I'll explain why. So the first thing we need to remember is that when a behaviour is rehearsed regularly enough, then it becomes reinforced. The dog becomes really good at it. It becomes a default kind of behaviour. And this can work for your training plan too, when you are able to get your dog to rehearse a new type of behaviour that you want over and over again. It becomes a dominant behaviour. So when you don't avoid situations that your dog is struggling with, they get to rehearse the same behaviour over and over again. And when we're talking about reactive behaviour and anxious behaviour, these are really powerful emotions. When a dog is acting with these emotions, it's because they're acting out of self-defense. They want something to stop that's happening. They want to make distance between themselves and it. They want it to go away. This is what they're trying to do. So basically, they're trying to find a place of safety. And safety and keeping yourself alive are hugely powerful motivators. There's not much that a person will do to threaten their own safety, to make a gain elsewhere. So, if you imagine a situation that you might think is not very safe, maybe how much would it cost for somebody to get you to do something that would put yourself in danger? That's how you're looking at these situations. When a dog is being invited to go close to something they're scared of, and we're just offering them a little crummy biscuit, then that is not enough of a motivator to outweigh the benefits of personal safety. This is really important. Understanding that this is coming from a place of self-preservation is so important. So the behaviour gets repeated, and the more that happens, as we know, the stronger it gets, the more dominant it becomes. Check out Why Dogs Do What They Do if you're interested more about motivators and self-rewarding behaviours and stuff like that, because it goes into a lot more detail there. But for now, you can tell all your doubters that you are not copping out or avoiding the issue at all. In fact, this is a valuable step in diluting the original behaviour, and the longer you can do that for, the more that old habit weakens. It's not an answer on its own, but once you have weakened the old behaviour and you start trying to introduce a new one, you're going to have a lot more success. The dog is not immediately trying to default to that old behaviour. The longer it's been since they've performed an old behaviour, the less likely it is to become their immediate go-to behaviour. As I say, it's not an answer on its own. It's not going to fix the underlying problem, but this is a really important first step. And when I say it's not a cop-out, and it is a good first step, it's actually often included as a part of a training plan. Often the first step when I'm working with something that causes anxiety or reactive behaviour is to only get your dog close enough that they can actually see it or experience it on the very mildest possible level, and then take them away again and offer them a reward. That's avoiding with a bit of style. So, as I say, we can't go on forever simply avoiding the situation entirely. We've taken a really important first step. We've started to avoid the trigger, which means that behaviour becomes less rehearsed. It loses its potency, it becomes diluted. Now what we want to do is we need to start small and start building up. So I already mentioned that in the early stages, I like to expose the dog to the thing that's triggering them, the thing that's causing them anxiety, that reactive trigger, in the smallest possible way. So this is where we're going now. We need to be close enough that they're aware of it, and then as we leave, we give them a reward, and that's all you do in the very start. So we're rewarding them, we're intervening, we're getting into that behaviour before the dog gets a chance to go to their original reaction. So for a dog that's very anxious about dogs in the park, you might be very far away from them. They could barely see them in the distance, but that's fine because they see the dog. The emotional scale has started to kick off. They're not in their comfort zone anymore. They'll know the dog is there. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to help them get to a place of safety, which is what the original behaviour was there for. The original behaviour was there to make the dog go away or help to find space or calling you, asking you to help them make space. So we found a place of safety by taking them away, and we've rewarded them for this new behaviour, which didn't involve the original reactive behaviour that you're trying to solve. And as we repeat this behaviour, this new behaviour becomes stronger and stronger. You can see it still achieves the goal of safety. So this will be something that your dog will try to repeat, and it's rewarding. When you're looking at changing a behaviour, once you know the original goal, if the new behaviour still meets the original goal and still is rewarding, there is a very, very good chance your dog will try to repeat that behaviour. So once we start this and we start repeating this, then this now becomes a behaviour that your dog would like to do because it still works and it's still rewarding. That's for reactive behaviour or anxious behaviour. But what about separation anxiety? So for separation anxiety, we're going to start very small again. Maybe we work on just coming and going. Perhaps we've established a set of triggers that your dog has associated with being left on his own. It could be things like picking up your shoes, picking up your keys, turning on the TV, or maybe there's a trigger phrase that you use that says that you're about to leave. All of those things your dog will associate with being left on his own, so they become part of that separation anxiety. So actually, if your dog is responding to them, he's already suffering with separation anxiety even before you've left the house. So you're going to start really small and start working on all these triggers, start working on leaving and coming back straight away. You might not even shut your door properly at the very early stages, because what we're trying to do is teach the dog that safety can still happen and there can still be a reward. When you come back, there'll be a reward, and they didn't have to be triggered. They didn't have to have that big reaction. So they're going to learn they can be safe without that. And then again, that new behaviour can be built on and grown. For anxiety around visitors and guests, figure out again the main triggers. Probably for you, this will be things like the doorbell, people passing, car doors slamming outside, gates being opened and closed perhaps. Perhaps you've got stones outside, crunching of the stones might be, for your dog, might be a trigger. Plus also look at your own behaviour, pre-visit stuff. So lots of people have a little pre-visitor routine. If you're expecting people to come, maybe you don't, but some people do. They would fluff the cushions, push the hoover around. Maybe they do a little bit of washing up, that kind of stuff, maybe they get mugs out, maybe they prepare cakes or something like that. So there's possibly a pre-visit routine that your dog will have also figured out. If you have one, your dog will know about it because they are absolute pros at figuring out these routines. Just like with separation anxiety, they know all the steps that are involved. They know the ones we do time and time and time again, and they know what they mean. So as soon as you start behaving in your pre-visitor routine or the doorbell goes or everything else, immediately they triggered into that state where they're now already afraid of the guest. And if that's just associated with fluffing the cushions, by the time they come in, there's maybe 2 or 3 more triggers on the way. They're going to be really, really full of anxiety. So before you've even tried to invite somebody in, work on all of those things. Eliminate the ones that don't need to be there as a part of your routine, or separate them enough Do your pre-visitor routine an hour before your visitors are due. So there's a nice big gap in between where your dog can just calm back down again. Slowing everything down is never wrong. So there's a few examples there about basically where we start after we've gone through our avoidance. This is our next step. So as we go into the next stages of your plan, don't stop avoiding the situations that are around you. When you set up training and you prepare yourself for it, then you can control what's happening around you, and you can prepare your dog for what's going to happen next. You can be there ready. You can have the treats that you need. You can have your clicker in your hand. You can have, whatever it takes, whatever you need will be there. You'll have the patience and the time to commit to the training. So at certain times, you're going to be working through your training plan, and you're going to be working through those steps and pushing the behaviour forward more and more and more each time. But there will still be times when you are going to continue to avoid your situation. And these will be times where it's not convenient to do the training. What we don't want to do is we don't want to get a week into training and teaching your dog that they're doing a great thing. For separation, for example, whenever you're starting to leave the front door, you might be able to leave for 2 seconds, before you have to come back in again. If that's the stage you're at, this is not the time a week into your training to go out for the afternoon, because when you go out for the afternoon, you're going to trigger the original reaction. So if you can avoid that while you're doing your training, then that is much better. Obviously, that's not possible for everybody to avoid. People do have jobs and things to do and kids to run around and all that kind of stuff. But if we can minimize the amount of times that the dog is triggered to their original behavior, then that behavior, again, does not get freshened up for them. The new behavior will become the most dominant one. That's the one they've repeated over and over and over again. It's the most recent one. And it's the one that we are trying to encourage. Once you've triggered the other one, it is a step backwards. But if you have to work like that, then that's fine. But if we can avoid triggering the old reaction, then we get there much faster. 10 good training sessions in a row is much better than 5 good ones, then one where it all went a bit wrong, and then 5 good ones. So when you can't control your environment, don't try and put your training into place until you've got your dog to a level where they can do it and they can do it. So let's not set them up to fail at this stage. I'm talking about things like, if your dog's struggling with visitors at the front door, when the man comes to deliver the takeaway, have your dog out the back so he's not part of that at the beginning. Don't have him involved when people come round to do the gas meter reading or when they're trying to deliver a parcel. Just take him completely away. As you practice and rehearse the new behaviour you're looking for, eventually it'll become so good that it becomes useful. So you need to keep practicing until that has happened. So for separation anxiety, 2 seconds out the door is not useful. But when you've built 2 seconds up to 10 seconds to a minute to 10 minutes, maybe when you get to 20 minutes, that's enough for you to run to the shop and grab a newspaper and get home again, or run and grab the kids from school and get home again. Only when the training allows it, when it becomes good enough that you can make use of it, do you introduce it into your real life. But maybe we're talking about dogs getting overwhelmed in the park by dogs getting near them or whatever. So try to avoid situations you can't control at the very start. Really still continue to avoid working on your training, keeping in control of that. Another thing to think about as well is that training sessions should be short. If they're very intense, then your dog is going to become overwhelmed, they become drained, they're going to become tired, their brain is going to get tired, and that's going to cause them to trigger really easily. So if you have spent 15 minutes in the park and you've met loads of dogs and he's done really well, it's probably a good time to get out of there, because once his brain starts to get tired, he's going to start to make mistakes and his patience levels are going to be lower and he's going to start to be more reactive. So you're not going to see the results that you want. Again, we don't want to keep triggering him when we don't have to. So if that's happened, take him away. If he still needs more time out for a walk, then take him somewhere really quiet. But definitely quit while you're ahead. Depending on how intense it is, a session could be anything from 10 to 30 minutes. If it's not too intense, 30 minutes is probably fine. But if you are doing lots and lots of very intense work, then keep it down to 10 so that we don't put them in a position where they can't cope very well. If your dog is sick, he'll be more reactive. If you're sick, then you're not going to have the patience to properly do this. So again, a couple more situations where you might choose avoidance still because the new behaviour is not strong enough to cope on its own. Finally, if you don't want to. I mean, it's hard work working with a dog that has anxiety or reactive behaviour of any kind, whether it's any of those things I've talked about already or something completely new and different. Reactive and anxious behaviour is draining. It's draining for you, but it's draining for your dog as well. And if you just don't feel it, then don't do it. Avoid it. But don't avoid it forever. Just avoid it to get yourself past this point. If you don't give it 100%, then actually it's almost not worth doing anyway. So give yourself a break, take a day off. If your dog struggles out for a walk, book a private field, take them there and let them have a good run around there where you can just be relaxed, they can just have fun, and you've still got them out the house for their walks. If it's a separation anxiety problem, see if you can get them into a daycare, get somebody to come and look after them for a day, and again, avoid. So avoidance is good as long as you're in control of it and you're avoiding with style. If you have a plan and you're avoiding but still working on it separately, then avoid away. And don't worry about everybody else judging the way that you're doing your training, because you're doing amazing. Take care for now. Bye-bye.